You wouldn't believe what happened when the man who ghosted me after I lost our baby showed up years later, with a desperate smile and a resume addressed to my name. Before I share what happened next, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. My name is Jordan. I'm 36 now, living in Denver, and I've learned the hard way that closure doesn't always come with an apology. Sometimes, it shows up uninvited in a cheap suit and pretends like you're strangers. But I'll start where it all really began, before the resume, before the silence, before I became someone he wouldn't recognize if he tried. Back then, I was a high school English teacher. I had a decent apartment, a loyal little mutt named Toby, and a closet full of secondhand cardigans I wore like armor. Life was quiet, predictable, mostly peaceful, except for the staff meetings and the PTA moms who thought gluten-free bake sales would fix the district's funding issues. That's when I met Caleb. He was the opposite of every man I'd dated before, easy with compliments, charming without trying too hard, and made me laugh in the frozen pizza aisle at Target, of all places. I remember he grabbed a DiGiorno and said, "This is how I survive teacher salary life," and I turned around holding the same exact one. That was our beginning. Casual, accidental, effortless. We were both teachers, both underpaid and a little overextended, and we clicked fast. Too fast, if I'm being honest in hindsight. First came the spontaneous coffee dates, then nights grading papers together on my lumpy couch, then Sunday morning pancakes at his place where his Spotify playlist made me feel like I belonged in a montage. We didn't move in together, but it felt like we were orbiting the same little planet. The kind where you split chores without talking about it, and you argue over who used the last of the almond milk, but only playfully. At least, until I got pregnant. It wasn't planned. I wasn't even sure I wanted kids. But when I saw those two pink lines, I sat on the bathroom floor with my hand over my mouth for a solid 20 minutes. I told Caleb the next day, nervously expecting panic. But he surprised me. His eyes widened, then softened. He kissed my forehead and said, "We'll figure it out. Together." For a while, we did. He came with me to the first 2 appointments, picked up prenatal vitamins without me asking, even downloaded an app that compared the baby to fruit sizes, our little raspberry, he'd say, brushing my hair back. But behind the scenes, something felt off. He started staying at his place more, saying work was stressing him out. He didn't come to the 3rd appointment. Said he had a last-minute sub-gig at another school. And then the cramps started. At first, they felt like normal growing pains. I'd read about it online. I told myself it was just my body adjusting, expanding. But one night, alone in my apartment, I bled through 3 layers of clothes before I could even process what was happening. I remember staring at the toilet water swirling red and thinking, this can't be it. This can't be how it ends. The ER confirmed it. A missed miscarriage. My baby, our baby, had stopped developing around 9 weeks. I was alone in that sterile white room with the flickering fluorescent light above me and a nurse who offered me tissues like that could possibly mop up what I was feeling. I texted Caleb. Nothing. I called him twice. No answer. By the time I was discharged with a prescription for painkillers and a cold packet of grief resources, I still hadn't heard from him. It wasn't just that he didn't show up, it was that he vanished completely. "No, I'm sorry." "No, are you okay?" Just gone. His apartment was cleared out a week later. His social media wiped clean. A friend of a friend said he took a job in Oregon. Just needed a change, they said. I stopped asking after that. Stopped hoping. Just stopped. I didn't tell my parents. They were already disappointed that I wasn't using my degree better. I didn't want to give them another reason to sigh into the phone. I told my coworkers I had the flu. I took 2 weeks off and sat in bed with my dog curled beside me, binge-watching baking shows and crying over cupcakes. Grief became this weird, silent roommate. It followed me to the grocery store, tugged at me during morning announcements, whispered to me in the teacher's lounge while I smiled through questions about lesson plans. Eventually, I changed districts, switched careers completely. A few months after the miscarriage, I signed up for a night class in digital marketing. Then another. And another. I got certified, built a little portfolio, started freelancing for small businesses on the side. My side hustle slowly turned into my full-time gig. It wasn't glamorous. At first, I was building Shopify sites for Etsy moms and writing SEO blogs for HVAC companies. But I was good at it. I had a way with words, and it turns out emotional intelligence makes you a hell of a brand storyteller. 2 years later, I founded my own boutique digital agency, StoryMint Creative. We started small, me and 2 friends from my cohort, but we grew fast. Good storytelling gets results, and we had a niche, helping women-owned businesses level up. Coaches, estheticians, candle makers, consultants, we helped them go from just an Instagram to fully branded, professional, and paid. We were based in a co-working space at first, then got our own office. Hired interns. Then full-timers. We weren't huge, but we were solid. And then, last fall, it happened. I was clearing out emails after a long client pitch when my assistant forwarded me a resume with the subject line, "Candidate for Brand Strategist Role, Caleb H." I froze. I must have read it 3 times before I could even move. Caleb H. There it was. His full name. His contact info. A cover letter that said, "I'm passionate about storytelling and helping brands find their voice." I swear I laughed. Not a happy laugh. One of those bitter, hollow, "Are you serious right now?" laughs. I clicked on the resume. Same guy. Same degree. He'd apparently done a few short stints at agencies since Oregon, including one that had just gone under. And now he was applying to my company. The one I built while he was busy pretending I didn't exist. That night, I sat in my office long after the cleaning crew left, just staring at his email. Part of me wanted to delete it. Pretend I never saw it. But another part of me, the part that rebuilt her life brick by brick after being ghosted in the worst way possible, wanted to see what would happen next. So I forwarded the email to myself. And the next morning, I called a meeting. I didn't tell my team who he was, not yet. I didn't want to steer the ship with emotion. I wanted clarity first. Control. Something I hadn't had the last time his name filled my inbox. Add him to the shortlist, I told my assistant, Kayla. Let's schedule a first-round virtual next week. She nodded, typing fast, then glanced up. Do you know him? I paused just half a beat too long. We crossed paths a while back, I said. It'll be good to see where he's at. Good to see where he's at? I repeated those words to myself all day, hating how steady my voice had sounded. Like I wasn't unraveling on the inside. Like I hadn't once sobbed into a pillow clutching a sonogram that never made it to a fridge door. But that's what grief teaches you, how to wear your poker face like a skin. For the next 5 days, I went about my life as if nothing was different. Ran a strategy session for a client launching a body-positive swimwear brand. Reviewed landing page drafts. Took my dog for a walk and watched suburban dads struggle with their leaf blowers. Normal things. But every night, my mind wandered back to Caleb. I remembered his laugh. The way he used to talk with his hands when he got passionate. The crooked way he tied his shoelaces. How he once said, "You're too strong for someone not to fall in love with." And how all of that evaporated the second life got hard. When Tuesday came, I wore my softest cream sweater, the one with the wide neckline that made me look both approachable and decisive. I sat in our glass-walled conference room, camera on, mic muted, heart pounding. Kayla ran the first part of the interview like always. Asked about client experience, campaign budgets, brand voice work. I stayed in the background with my name visible, just Jordan, CEO. Then Caleb's face popped up on Zoom. He looked older. A little grayer around the edges, a bit more hollow in the cheeks. Still charming though. Still had that voice that could sell you a kayak in the desert if he wanted. But the second he saw my name in the corner, I saw it hit him. His eyes flicked to it, then quickly back to the camera, and for a moment, just a flicker, his jaw tensed. He knew. He didn't say anything. Not then. Not during the whole 30-minute interview. He answered questions cleanly. Smiled. Cracked a few jokes about remote work fatigue. Told a story about a brand refresh he led for a vegan skincare line that made me cringe because I knew it was actually a rehash of something I'd written years ago on my old freelance blog. When Kayla wrapped the call, she turned to me with a grin. He's slick, she said. Maybe a little too slick. But he knows his stuff. I nodded slowly. Let's move him to the next round. I'll take it from here. Her brows lifted, surprised. You sure? I want to get a sense of his leadership style, I said smoothly. See how he handles direct critique. But really, I wanted to see if he had the spine to look me in the eye. We scheduled the final interview for Thursday, just the two of us. That morning, I showed up early, coffee in hand, breathing steady. And when his face appeared on screen again, I didn't flinch. Hi, Caleb, I said. He blinked slowly. Jordan. His voice was softer than I remembered. Not unsure, just careful. Thanks for taking the time, I said professionally. Let's jump in. I asked him about storytelling techniques, brand tone shifts, how he handled client disagreements. He answered easily, like we were just two industry peers chatting about strategy. Like he hadn't once walked out of my life like a coward. Halfway through, I closed my notebook and leaned back. I'll be honest, I said. Your resume's impressive. But there's one thing I'm wondering. He sat straighter, polite smile still intact. What's that? How do you deal with accountability? He hesitated. I continued, when something goes wrong, when a client's upset or a team member's blindsided, how do you respond? He looked straight at me now. Transparency, he said. Even if it's hard. Especially then. I tilted my head. And what about personal accountability? Outside of work? He paused. For the first time, the confident glint in his eyes dimmed. Is this still the interview? He asked softly. I met his gaze, unblinking. That depends. Are you applying for the job, or for redemption? A long silence fell between us. You could have heard a pin drop in that Zoom call. Finally, he exhaled. Shoulders slumped slightly. Jordan. I'm sorry, he said. I wanted to say that for a long time. When you told me about the miscarriage, something inside me snapped. I didn't know how to be there for you, and I panicked. You didn't panic, I said quietly. You disappeared. He looked down. I was scared, he muttered. And ashamed. I thought leaving would hurt less than staying and messing it up worse. But you didn't leave, I corrected. You ghosted. Like I didn't matter. Like our child didn't matter. His lips pressed into a line. I know. I messed up. Completely. He looked back up. I saw your company online. Didn't realize it was you until I applied. But when I saw your name, I thought maybe this was fate. A chance to make something right. I gave him a soft, sad smile. You're not the villain of my story, Caleb. But you're not the hero either. He nodded slowly. Am I forgiven? I sat with that for a moment. I'm not sure forgiveness is a checkbox, I said. But I'm not angry anymore. That part of me healed without you. Another silence. This one less sharp, more still. Well, he said after a beat. Thank you for the conversation. I understand if I'm not the right fit. He started to reach for the leave button. Caleb. He paused. I'm not hiring you. He nodded, unsurprised. But I hope whatever you build next, you stay. He blinked. Stay? Present, I clarified. With the people who trust you. Because that's the only thing that really matters when it all falls apart. He swallowed. Thank you. The screen went dark. And I sat there for a long time afterward, staring at my reflection in the Zoom square, feeling something settle in me like dust on an empty shelf. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just peace. You'd think that moment would have been the end of it. But it wasn't. See, when someone reappears in your life after years of silence, after trauma, after growth, after you've built something they never thought you could, their shadow doesn't just vanish when they leave the Zoom room. It lingers. In memory. In muscle. In that soft part of your heart that still wonders what could have been if they'd stayed. The day after our call, I sat on the office balcony with my laptop closed and my coffee going cold, just listening to the sound of Denver traffic below. It was almost poetic, the calm after the storm, the emotional residue that clings even when the person is gone again. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I didn't. Instead, I felt this strange kind of clarity. Like I'd been holding my breath for 3 years and finally let it go. Still, I couldn't stop the thoughts from coming. I remembered the baby booties I'd impulsively bought at Target the week after my second appointment, the ones I'd hidden under my bed when the cramping started. I remembered how I'd rewritten my whole life story after Caleb disappeared, not just career-wise, but emotionally, spiritually. I'd stopped waiting for someone to show up for me. Instead, I showed up for myself. And that shift, that quiet rebellion, changed everything. Story Mint wasn't just a company, it was the life raft I built from the wreckage. Every brand we helped, every woman we coached out of imposter syndrome, every client we took from maybe someday to sold out in 72 hours, that was my healing. But it also made me hyper-aware of how many women were still doing emotional labor for free. One night, about a week after the Caleb interview, I was scrolling through our client feedback surveys and paused on a name, Madison J. I clicked into her notes. She ran a small grief coaching business, mostly Instagram-based, still using Canva templates and DMs for scheduling. She'd hired us for a basic rebrand package. Nothing fancy. Her intake form said, "My miscarriage changed everything. But I want that pain to mean something, to help other women feel less alone." I sat there staring at that line, heart thudding. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because her story mirrored mine, but because she was trying to turn her grief into light and didn't know how. The next morning, I called an impromptu team meeting. "I want to upgrade Madison's package," I said. "Full website, email sequence, blog strategy, the works." Kayla blinked. She only paid for the starter plan. "I know," I said. "We'll gift the rest." Quietly. "Just tell her we had some extra creative bandwidth." Kayla tilted her head, studying me. "This about Caleb?" I met her eyes. "No. This is about someone showing up when it matters." So we did it. In 2 weeks, Madison went from just a coaching page to a full grief resource hub. We added blog posts with titles like "What to Say to a Friend Who Miscarried" and "Healing When You Don't Get Closure." We built her a downloadable journal, a newsletter system, and a gorgeous, sun-soaked homepage that felt like a hug. She cried on Zoom when she saw it. Full-on tears. Said she'd never had anyone believe in her like that. After the call, I sat in my chair for a long time, my chest tight in the best way. I didn't need revenge. I needed impact. And still, fate wasn't done with me. 2 weeks later, our HR contractor forwarded me a Slack message from one of our junior strategists, Cassie. "Hey, just FYI, someone named Caleb H. is DMing me on LinkedIn asking about the company culture and if we're hiring again. Didn't he interview with us?" I stared at the message. Was he serious? It was almost laughable, like the ghost from my past refused to stay buried. I didn't respond. Didn't reach out. Didn't warn Cassie. I didn't need to. Instead, I quietly called my HR contractor. "I want to set a new boundary around our hiring process," I said. "Let's add a clause. Any applicant who knowingly uses internal staff to probe after rejection will be automatically disqualified." Soft boundary or hard? Hard, I said. "We have too many women here rebuilding after toxic dynamics. We don't entertain ghosts." She chuckled. "Got it. I'll draft the language." And just like that, I watched the last tendril of him drift away, professionally, emotionally, energetically. It wasn't petty. It was peace. Still, something inside me stirred. Not resentment, but curiosity. I went looking, not for him, but for me. Old me. I pulled up my archived blog from 3 years ago. The one I used to write on late nights, when grief kept me awake and words were my only salve. I found a post titled, "What I Wish I Could Say to the Man Who Left." It was raw, unedited, almost too painful to read. But it had heart. And it had one sentence that hit like a sucker punch. "You ghosted me, but I learned how to haunt in sunlight." I stared at that line for a long time. Then I copied it. Posted it as a quote card on the Story Mint Instagram with no context. Just, "You ghosted me, but I learned how to haunt in sunlight, anonymous." Within 24 hours, it went viral. Thousands of likes, shares, comments like, "I feel this in my bones. Didn't know I needed this till I read it. Whoever wrote this, I hope she's thriving now." Kayla saw it and messaged me, "This one's hitting hard. People are asking who wrote it." I just replied, "Let it speak for itself." But I knew. It was me. And maybe that was the softest revenge of all. Not exposure. Not payback. but resonance. The kind that echoes longer than apologies. The Monday after that quote went viral, I walked into the office to find Kayla standing by my door with this weird look on her face, half stunned, half amused. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, sliding her phone toward me. There it was. A LinkedIn post from Caleb. He had reshared our quote, the one I wrote at my lowest, adding some long caption about learning from past failures and showing up better for the people you care about. I read the whole thing twice, fighting the urge to roll my eyes so hard they'd fall out of my skull. Kayla leaned in. "Do you think he knows it's you?" I stared at the screen for a long beat. Maybe, maybe not. But it's not my job to babysit his self-awareness. She snorted. Fair. Truth was, I wasn't angry. Not even irritated. Just tired. Tired of men who hurt you and then try to turn your pain into their inspirational moment. Tired of carrying the emotional weight of people who never deserved the space they took up in my story. I closed the app. He can repost whatever he wants, I said. It doesn't change how his chapter ended. And that was that. Or so I thought. That afternoon, my inbox pinged with a message from an unfamiliar address. It was short. Barely 5 sentences. Subject, thank you. Message, hey Jordan. I saw the quote you posted. I don't know if it was about me, but I felt it. And I want you to know I really am sorry. Not for the job. For before. For everything. I've been in therapy for a year now, trying to figure out why I ran. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to hear that. Caleb. I read it twice. Then a third time. I didn't feel a lump in my throat. Didn't feel anger rising. Didn't feel sentimental or nostalgic or tempted. Just present. That was the gift trauma sometimes gives you. It teaches you to read without reacting. I closed the email and didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. But because the woman I'd become didn't owe the past version of him anything, not closure, not conversation, not emotional labor. He had already taken enough. Instead, I turned my attention back to my team, my clients, my life. A week later, I flew to Phoenix for a branding workshop. I spoke on stage about resilience, reinvention, and storytelling as a survival skill. I shared the journey from underpaid teacher to CEO, from abandoned heartbreak to self-made stability. I didn't mention Caleb by name. Didn't need to. Pain doesn't have to be a character to shape the plot. After the workshop, a woman in her early 40s approached me with trembling hands. I followed your quote online, she said softly. You don't know how much it helped me. She had recently left a marriage that had drained her dry, emotionally, financially, spiritually. She told me she felt invisible, empty, and terrified. You're not invisible, I told her. You're rebuilding. Her eyes filled with tears. She hugged me like she was holding on to the idea that she wasn't alone anymore. That moment changed something in me. For the first time, I saw the full circle. My grief hadn't been wasted. It had turned into connection. Into healing. Into a lifeline for women who were still standing in the exact darkness I once didn't know how to escape. And that was worth more than any apology. When I returned to Denver, I found a hand-addressed envelope in our office mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a small printed ultrasound picture, not mine, thank God, and a note. I'm going to be a dad, it said. I didn't know who else to tell. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to do it right this time. I sat down slowly, letting the weight of his words settle. Not sadness. Not jealousy. Not bitterness. Just acceptance. He wasn't my story anymore. He was a footnote. And footnotes don't get to rewrite the ending. I put the letter back in the envelope and tucked it in a drawer, not out of sentiment, but out of closure. A symbolic, this belongs behind me now. That same night, I lit a candle, the same scent I used to burn during late-night study sessions back when story mint was just an idea on a vision board, eucalyptus and cedarwood. I sat by my window, city lights glowing through the glass, Toby snoring against my legs, and let myself feel the stillness. The real stillness. Not the quiet that follows abandonment. The quiet that follows healing. I realized then that my soft revenge wasn't turning him down for a job, or protecting my team, or watching my words go viral. My soft revenge was the fact that I became a woman I would have admired even before the heartbreak. A woman who rebuilt without rage. A woman who earned her joy. A woman who didn't need someone to come back to say she was worth staying for. The next morning, I woke up early. Earlier than usual. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and drafted a new blog post for our website. When the person who hurt you reappears, don't ask why they came back. Ask why you moved on without them. I hit publish. And for the first time since I saw those 2 pink lines years ago, I felt whole. Not because I forgot what happened, but because I survived it. And because survival, quiet, steady, unglamorous survival, became the foundation of everything I built afterward. Later that afternoon, Kayla popped her head into my office. "You okay?" she asked gently. I smiled. "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She nodded, then handed me a stack of new resumes. "Ready for the next round of interviews?" I laughed softly, flipping the folder open. "Absolutely. No ghosts this time. Just beginnings." And if someone listening to this is sitting in their own silence, their own hurt, their own unanswered questions, I hope they know something. You can rebuild. You can reclaim. You can return to yourself piece by piece. You don't need an apology to heal. You just need to choose yourself over and over until the choice becomes natural. Until the wound becomes a story. Until the story becomes a strength. And until the strength becomes a life you're proud to live. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember what grace looks like when it finally wins.